In April 2013, the Auditor General released his report on school district board governance. To read the full report, please visit our website at www.bcauditor.com. The following presentation provides a summary of the report. As the nonpartisan, independent auditor of the Legislative Assembly, the Auditor General audits the government reporting entity. This consists of ministries, crown corporations, and other government organizations, such as universities, colleges, school districts, health authorities, and similar organizations that are controlled by or accountable to the provincial government. The Office of the Auditor General serves the people of British Columbia and their elected representatives by conducting independent audits and advising on how well government is managing its responsibilities and resources. Under the Auditor General Act, the Auditor General conducts and reports on both financial audits and performance or value for money audits. The Act also allows the Auditor General to follow up on any recommendations made in reports. Governance refers to the structures and processes that direct, control, and hold an organization to account. For most organizations, the governing body is a board of directors or trustees, comprised of people elected or appointed to provide organizational oversight. In the public sector, the legislature, the responsible minister, government ministries, central government agencies, and public stakeholders also play a role in governance. Good governance is the foundation from which an organization can achieve its objectives. Good governance ensures that an organization is allocating resources wisely and serving the public interest openly and transparently. Active board governance is key to ensuring effective Crown agency governance. Establishing and maintaining effective board governance is an important responsibility for government and for approximately 200 Crown agency governing boards. These agencies are established by government to serve the public interest and advance overall public policy objectives. At the same time, Crown agencies operate with a degree of autonomy to deliver services and make decisions without direct day-to-day control by government ministers. Our office has reviewed Crown agency board governance in the past. Last year, we reviewed board governance at 4 Crown agencies: BC Transit, Camosun College, University of Northern British Columbia, and the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority. In these reviews, we identified areas of good practice, but also areas for improvement. This year, we focused on school district board governance by looking at 3 different school districts: Caribou-Chilcotin, School District 27, Surrey, School District 36, and Mission, School District 75. Here too we documented some good practices, but also areas for improvement. Very similar to the board governance examination we conducted last year, all 3 school districts were assessed using the same 3 examination objectives. The first objective, board governance structure, examined whether board composition and evaluation practices are used to identify and develop board capacity to fulfill governance roles and responsibilities. The second objective, board governance practices, examined whether boards are taking the necessary steps to fulfill their roles and responsibilities, thereby providing effective governance for the school district. The third objective, government's performance expectations, examined whether government made its performance expectations of the organization clear, monitors for compliance, and works collaboratively with school districts to resolve any issues. We developed our examination criteria based on the BC government's best practice guidelines and checklists produced by the Board Resourcing and Development Office and the Crown Agencies Resource Office, as well as good practice guidelines published by our office in 2008, titled Public Sector Governance, A Guide to the Principles of Good Practice. Our examinations found examples of good governance practices on the part of all 3 school boards. Examples of good practice included Caribou-Chilcotin's good documentation of board roles and responsibilities, Surrey's proper delegation of responsibility between the board and management, and Mission's documented code of conduct and ethical standards. Overall, it was encouraging to observe that board members are engaged and dedicated to their public service role. While our examinations found some good governance practices, we also found areas for improvement. The following areas for improvement are applicable to all 3 school districts examined. Individual findings that varied by district are also included in the report, with specific recommendations on those findings made to individual school districts. On the topic of needs assessments and competency matrices, ensuring boards are comprised of members with the skills and experience needed to provide effective organizational oversight is a key component of board governance. In BC, government good practice guidelines direct boards to develop and maintain board competency matrices and needs assessments to ensure they retain the skills and experience needed to effectively fulfill their oversight responsibilities. We found that boards we examined have not developed formal, up-to-date board competency matrices, and boards' needs assessments are not being conducted by school districts we looked at, which increases the risk that boards will not have all of the skills and experience required to provide effective oversight. For annual evaluations, in all of the board examinations, we found that boards were not conducting annual evaluations in keeping with best practices as identified in the guidelines provided by the Board Resourcing and Development Office. A board's evaluation of its performance is important to enable it to identify strengths, areas for improvement, and to implement strategies to address challenges. They are also important for identifying areas for improvement for the individual board members and contribute to the consideration for renewal of board appointments when terms expire. Boards are also not annually evaluating the performance of superintendents, the board's one employee. However, one district does conduct a thorough review of its superintendent every 3 years. When it comes to orientation and professional development, although orientation and professional development is provided to the trustees, and they are generally satisfied with the training that's provided, we found that trustees are not sufficiently aware of the good practice guidelines developed by the BC government for governing boards. As a result, they need to strengthen their practices in some key areas. For example, good practice guidelines identify the most common core committees for boards are finance, governance, human resources, and compensation and audit. Board committees varied by school district, with all having a finance and budget committee, but none having an audit committee. Overall, we found that boards favored operating at committees of the whole. It is important that boards understand good practices regarding the use of committees and work to establish the right balance based on the needs of the board and the district. Good practice guidelines calls for boards to have a formal risk management framework in place to ensure appropriate systems of control are in place to manage risks. This is an area where all 3 school districts were found to need improvement. We found that direct communication between the ministry and boards is required to clearly establish and communicate good practice expectations for school board governance. Insufficient direct communication between the ministry and boards can lead to misunderstanding and disagreement. We will be following up with the 3 school districts and the ministry in 1 year to review their progress and report publicly on the status of these recommendations. We intend to conduct additional board governance examinations in the future to identify further opportunities for improved governance at the organizational level and to assess whether there are issues that require coordinated action by central government. That concludes our summary of this report. To read this report and our other publications, or for more information about our office, please visit our website at www.bcauditor.com. The Office of the Auditor General encourages your feedback on this report, as well as your suggestions for further audits. We look forward to hearing from you soon.